Well, viewers, thank you so very much once again for tuning into the Sanjubaba show. Really appreciate that a lot. I did get quite a few phone calls from you. Appreciate that. I enjoyed that you are understanding, you're listening to my shows, and you're communicating with me. My number, once again, folks, is 208-226-6024. As always promised, I do have a fantastic and very interesting personality today in the studios. You must have been to him already. If not, I think you should schedule a date with him. This gentleman is a person who understands your brain functioning. He understands where you are at, what you're thinking, and what your present situation is with your physical and mental conditions. So I do not understand that very much. That's why I called him here to the studio, so we can talk about him. I mean, talk about the program that he specializes in. The gentleman is Brett Judd, and Brett Judd is the person who specializes in mind neuro balancing, which, folks, started, I think, quite some time back, but got introduced in Pocatello very recently. Brett, thank you so very much for coming to our studios. Really appreciate that.
Absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Balancing brain for better life. Take me through that.
So what we do is we take the individual and we look at them not so much as somebody with a lot of problems, and a lot of times we all get wrapped up in our problems. And when you start breaking it down, little things that are out of balance can cause such a huge impact on everything around us. And so balancing the brain for a better life came out of this idea. When my wife and I were introduced to neurobalancing, was about almost 4 years ago now. And it just really made sense to us. I'm a licensed social worker and have been doing social work type employment or activities for almost 20 years here in this area. And my wife's a licensed counselor, and we have a counseling practice, and we were looking for something that could really fill in the gap. We could only get people in counseling so far. And then it was kind of like coping, and well, this is as good as it's going to get, and you're going to be okay, but you're going to have to work on this. Or we get people who'd come in who were so out of balance, and things were just such a mess, we couldn't really get started. And so we were really hoping and looking for something, and that's when we found this.
Where did you find this, and how many years of a course is this?
So we found this out of kind of a curious chain of events. My wife was in clinical supervision, and one of the people that was in her supervision group said, why don't you guys come take a look at this work that we're doing? And there was an agency here in town that was doing this work privately with their population in-house. It was a residential place.
Over here in Pocatello?
In here in Pocatello, yeah, but they couldn't take it out to the community. It was only to their population. And so she went, and
go ahead.
She went and she saw what this was about, and she saw what they were doing, and came home and says, we need to go do this. And I didn't know what it was, and so I started digging into it. We went down to Scottsdale ultimately, Scottsdale, Arizona, and we were trained in the process of brainwave optimization. In that process, we use sensors on the scalp to read what the brain's doing. They're like little microphones that pick up the electrical pulses of the brain. And we learned about neuroanatomy. We learned about what a balanced and imbalanced state of being would look like. And we were able to learn the technology, and the technology really drives a lot of what we're doing in order to bring about change into people's life.
How long of a process is this? And how do you decide that this gentleman or this person needs this balancing program?
Sure. So the process itself takes roughly 10 sessions. 10 to 12 sessions is what we kind of ballpark.
Okay.
How do we decide who needs it and who doesn't? It's really up to the individual. Somebody comes in and talks to us, and they're dealing with anxiety, they're dealing with depression. We've had people with bipolar disorder come in and say, can you help me? Sleep. In fact, Wake Forest University and their medical facility have been doing several studies using this technology in eliminating insomnia, and have published in several journals their results, and it's been absolutely phenomenal. So we tell people that to start, we really should look at somewhere between 10 and 12 sessions. And they'll come into the office. The sessions are about an hour and a half long.
Okay.
And ideally, if we can do the ideal method with people's schedule, we would do twice a day for a week. And it's intensive, and that's what we call it, is a neurobalancing intensive. The reason we have to do it like that is the brain is it likes its patterns. And that's one of the reasons that we get out of balance. It goes through an event, it has a stressful experience, has a traumatic experience. And the brain has a way of saying, this is how I survived. I developed this pattern, we began to function this way, and lived. We better hang on to that. Well, after the traumatic or stressful experience, we don't need that pathway anymore. But the brain hangs on to it just in case. And so it kind of sits there in the background. And if it fires up, if it begins to be active, then we could start to have issues when we didn't need it. We didn't need that stress. We didn't need that activation. But the brain wasn't sure what was going on, and so it kicked up that old memory.
So when a patient comes to you,
yeah,
you talk to them, you understand what they are lacking and what they have come to you for.
Right.
So you have a computerized system where you can show them that you are here right now.
Exactly.
And this treatment is going to take you here.
Right.
So brain wave optimization. Can we call it brain therapy?
Hey, you could. We try to stay kind of out of the whole, therapy kind of idea, and to get away from this idea that we're doing some kind of a medical process or anything of that nature. It's a very individualized experience. So when somebody comes in and they decide they want to do this, the very first thing that I will do with the sensors on their scalp is I will get a kind of a map of what each lobe of the brain is doing. It'll show me from the lowest frequencies to the high frequencies exactly what its functioning is.
How long of a time period is that for you to study that?
It takes about an hour and a half to do that. Okay. It takes about 45 minutes for us to actually do the assessment. Then I read that, analyze it, make some marks on it, and then talk to the person about it. And we're able to show this is what the left side of the brain is doing, this is what the right side of the brain is doing, and where the imbalances are. We look at the front and the back of the brain, and we're able to help them see. And it's a very visual thing. You can actually see where things are they're not imbalanced. Things are not in harmony when we look at the numbers this way. That then tells us where we need to start. And with that map, we go to work and start to then start the sessions and
so the session depends from person to person depending on where they are.
Exactly. It's hugely individual.
So minimum of 10 weeks.
10 sessions.
10 sessions.
Ideally in 1 week. If we can get it done the way that we've had the best success, somebody would commit about 4 hours a day for a week to come in, and we would do these sessions. Typically what tends to happen is at about session 4 to 5, midweek, there will be a tipping point where we can actually see on the screen in the computer a shift in the brain activity. The image that I'm looking at, the meters, the readings, actually change somewhere about midway through. The energy drops. Things left and right sides come into balance with each other. The person typically at that point will start saying, I slept through the night last night, or I dreamt last night, and I haven't had dreams in years. One person said to me, I got angry today. I said, you did? What do you mean? He says, no, that was good. I don't feel. I feel again. And so all of these barriers, all of these emotional and behavioral barriers that happen when the brain gets out of balance start opening up for people. And that's an exciting thing to watch when these things happen for folks.
What is the success rate in Pocatello?
How
do you define that?
A couple of ways that we define it. The one way that we can define it is graphically. through the images and the graphs that we can print out when the sessions are over. This is where you were. This is where you are now. And we can actually show on those printouts where the brain was out of balance, where the lobes were functioning and not functioning, and where they're at now. I had a young gal just a few weeks ago, 15-year-old girl. She'd had 3 major concussions due to soccer. All of them happened in the front right part of the brain. When we looked in the beginning, the front right part of her brain was almost not active at all. It was as if somebody had taken a volume dial and all that energy and turned it right off. The left side was actually overactive to try and compensate. When we were done at the end of that week, the left and the right sides of the front of her brain, where the concussion had happened on the right, were running in equal balance with each other. They were absolutely in harmony. And that's how we can see, on one. The second way, and I think this is the most important way, is the reports that we hear back from our clients. Like the gentleman says, I haven't ever felt before. Sure. People who say, I slept all the way through the night, or I don't get anxious anymore. I went through an experience and I didn't get angry like I would normally get. They start to have a different physical and behavioral experience in life. And now we're starting, that I think is one of the greatest successes.
So how soon do you need to know? So for example, this little girl, she had an accident.
Yeah.
Now, what is the time frame from her getting an accident to come to, do you refer yourself Dr. Judd?
No, I'm not I'm a licensed a licensed social worker, master social worker,
Sure.
tongue-tied.
So
I'm not a doctor.
Well, within how long of a period of time should they come and see you,
Sure.
so they can see a very serious effect and answer towards your program?
The sooner the better. If you have an actual head trauma, the sooner the better, because then the brain hasn't ingrained this new pattern. The longer the brain hangs on to it, the more entrenched it tends to be, because the more times it has
like
to practice
any other
it. Exactly.
Yes.
We all get into habits over time through repeated exercising of that behavior.
Sure.
The brain does the same thing. If somebody's been doing something for a long time and we can see this is a well-entrenched, it's a little more difficult to change that pattern. So a few years ago, right after we got this technology, I got in an accident that totaled our Suburban. Within a few days, I started to have difficulty sleeping. I was having trouble going through intersections because of the remembrance of the accident. It was almost like a post-traumatic stress disorder experience. I got in the chair within a week of the accident and went through the sessions. And within about 4 sessions, the dreams went away and my paranoia at intersections had diminished significantly. Now, I had already gone through a series of 10 about a year prior to that, and so we weren't trying to totally balance the brain. We were just trying to get rid of this latest. I was amazed at how quickly it went away when I approached it very short time after.
Sure.
But we've had people come in and we'll get done with the session and they'll say, I remember this now. This was years ago. I haven't thought about that in forever. Or they'll say, I can remember that. It doesn't hurt anymore. And the emotional pain and the memories associated with it are now able to be freed, and it gives them a lot of mobility then mentally and emotionally. And so it can be old stuff. It doesn't have to be in the moment.
It just takes a little bit longer.
It can take a little bit longer. Yeah.
I'm associated with quite a lot of clubs around town in the city of Pocatello, and I did talk to quite a few people regarding your program. And honestly speaking, they have gotten quite a few results because their either cousins or neighbors did go to your sessions and they got the results. And I was really impressed when I heard the stories that they had.
Sure.
Brett, what is the kind of a cost are we looking at in that 10 session of yours?
To do the assessment, the 10 sessions in a week, and then 1 follow-up session. So there's about 12 meetings with us.
Sure.
To do that is $1,650. It takes about 25 hours of our, of time working with the individual, and then our time in the background. And
does the insurance cover that?
Sometimes, but rare is the way that we usually say it. Every now and then we get surprised and somebody's insurance is willing to step up and cover parts of this. Usually at best we're getting 20 to 30% reimbursement is all, if they will do it. If somebody has a medical flex spending account, we've never had any problem with people using that. So the actual insurance policy has been very hit and miss, but somebody plans and they put it into their flex spending account or a medical savings account. Sure. Never had a problem with that, and that's a really good way for people.
Are you working on seeing what you can do to help people with the insurance program? I think in that aspect the business would grow a little bit more and people would feel more comfortable to come back to you?
They absolutely would, and it would be great if we could. We have talked with Blue Cross Blue Shield, and what I've learned with them is it really depends on the policy itself. It's not even the insurance company. It depends on what procedures or what codes are allowed within the individual's policy. And so that's one of the areas that's been very difficult. So what we've done is put together a sheet that basically we can give to the individual and say, they can call the insurance company and say, do you cover these codes in my policy? And it gives them the ability to find out that information.
Sure. So if I am with a physician, so I've gone to the hospital and there's a physician who is working on my mind, on my brains.
Right.
Can they redirect me to Brett Judd?
They can.
And that could be covered. In that case, it is covered.
Perhaps. That's an area that we have not had an opportunity to move into. But we do everything we can with the individual to help them get access into those funds that are possible. If it was a direct medical referral, so we had the relationship with the doctor, it's something that may open that up. I can't say for sure because we haven't had to do that yet. Most people, when they come, they've recognized the need. They say, this is something I want, and I'm willing to invest in myself to do this work. And we've worked with them, if needed, to make not allowances, but payments, if possible, to make it happen. And most of the time, it's come to a place where the folks are like, I want what this does. I don't want the medications anymore because it's causing me problems. I want to see if this will help me there. Or I want this distress gone, and they're willing to do that work for themselves. And that tends to be what happens for most folks.
I'll tell you, Brett, I come from a different country, from India.
Yes.
And honestly speaking, as I have stayed in America, I've been here for 17 years now, and I think my stress level has gone from 0 to 90.
Absolutely.
I think this country can do that to you because we are so much into competition.
Right.
What do you have and what do I have? The materialistic value of our life has grown so much. Christmas has not been a Christmas anymore. It's what do I have and what am I getting?
Right.
I think that stress level, you've got a great market niche on that. So tell us something about how can your program benefit the stress level?
Absolutely. And I love that you went there. One of the things that I have experienced doing this type of work, therapeutic work for this long, and then in my own life, is that in our culture, in the American culture, unlike many, many parts of the world, we do not teach and embrace the idea of relaxation, meditation, disconnection for a while to just declutter all of that emotion. We don't teach it to our kids. We don't embrace it as a society. And it does bring an amazing amount of distress into people's lives. And what this does, and really what we're doing, is retraining and helping that person learn how to find that really quiet, balanced place, a place of quite a bit of harmony and relaxation. It teaches them and opens the pathways where they can begin to find relaxation. A lot of times people will take this as the springboard to daily meditation, to daily practice of reconnection and disconnection from the stress. And it changes a lot of their life.
That was my next question. We are so much gearing ourselves, Americans nowadays, towards yoga and meditation, and a lot of Asian natural method of cure has been introduced in this country so much. Now, when we call meditation and yoga, and we put your program in the same line, your program is costing us $1,600. Meditation and yoga is costing us maybe $50, or I don't know how much it is.
Right.
Now, why do you say your program is more effective than yoga and meditation?
I don't think that it's more effective. Where it's very, very effective is taking years of learned programmed behavior of stress, of go, don't quit, got to achieve, and it stops that. It takes and rewrites that pattern, and we can, in a week and a half's time, change that pattern that has been ingrained in and alter it, so now they can go forward, they can do the meditation, they can go to yoga and have a deeper, more fulfilling experience, and they don't have to go through session after session after session of yoga and meditation hoping to finally get down into that space, because we're able to unravel the pre-programmed, or not pre-programmed, but their mental programming that says go, 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 stop that, and now get them into a place of quiet, harmonized functioning, and then they go manage that and maintain that through these other healthy practices.
Excellent. So, Brett, what about mentally challenged people? Can we do anything to take them to the next level of finding themselves in a better place?
Yeah, absolutely.
Through your program?
We can.
Okay.
And we have seen that happen on numerous occasions. And it depends on how you look at these things. And I'm one, and I guess this is why I was drawn to this. I tend to look at a lot of these mental challenges as not necessarily a life-threatening, permanent, you will be stuck with this the rest of your life, but I like to look at it more like, where did this come from? How did we get into this? How can we unravel that? And when you start looking at things in a different perspective, you start to see that imbalances, traumas, excessive amounts of stress, abandonments tend to shift things that then begin to manifest themselves as what we would call, these mental disorders or illnesses with excessive depression or panic and anxiety. Even what a lot of people have been given as a bipolar, when you look at it, is a coping mechanism, is a way of managing, and the brain's kind of got stuck in this pattern coming out of some pretty aggressive, awful experiences for many of these folks. So if we can go in and at a very simple level through this process, get the brain to harmonize, get the brain to relax, and as a result, release the trauma. Many, many times, these people then start to come out of what they would have been labeled and straddled with the rest of their life. And that's something for me as a practitioner in this that I love doing it. And we don't bill it or put it out there as a cure-all because it's so individual what's going to happen. And so we're very, very cautious to not get hopes up for people that you are going to come in and you start on Monday, you're going to walk out Friday, and you're never going to have to take medication again. You're not going to deal with depression again. But it does change dramatically their experience.
So when I've seen a lot of mentally challenged people, some at a very young age, some at the middle age or the older age. Now, is there a reason why, I know you don't belong to this exact area of practice, but because you're dealing with brains, this is a question.
Sure.
Do you think that there is a reason why there's a change in the age? Why is it a little child who is mentally challenged at a young age of 4 or 5? Is it because of parents' physical stability? Or the guy who is 17 or 18 years old, all of a sudden they find himself mentally challenged all of a sudden, and then again the age of 60, 65 years old?
Yeah.
There's a huge gap in between those.
There's a huge gap, and It's a lot of things. The environment plays a lot. The amount of nurture, the amount of support, the amount of stability that we have when we're early on developing our mental pathways, and the brain is putting together these rules and systems, has an amazing impact on what will be manifest later on in life. That older teen that maybe then transitions, the brain is going through an amazing amount of transition from birth to about 10 years of age, 10 to 12. The brain functions in a very concrete fashion. If you think about it, we don't start teaching algebra and some of these higher math until they get to about 10, 12, 13 years of age. The brain's higher executive functioning doesn't start working until that point. And so as they develop, and then again in those late teens, early 20s, the brain does another developmental shift where it really brings on the full order of its logic and reasoning and the cognitive awareness. Each transition, each one of those stages, the brain is making major changes, and depending on how it's adapting through that, can manifest a lot of different things. Depending on whatever its developmental road was up to that point, can then trigger a certain direction one way or the other.
What are your side effects of your program?
Relaxation. I mean, not to sound flippant or anything, but it doesn't do anything that is going to cause excessive amount of distress. It's teaching the brain to relax. It's teaching the brain to listen to itself and to harmonize. The ultimate outcome of learning how to have a relaxed, balanced brain is a relaxed state of being. And that has been consistently the experience of everybody that comes through, is that. Occasionally, when we're going through the session, if the brain releases a certain amount of energy out of, say, a subconscious memory, it can have a little bit of emotional turmoil. But on maybe one or two occasions, has that been distressing for the person? Most of the time, the folks say, you know what, I let go, because I've been holding on to that forever. And so even though there was some emotion in the moment, it was a very cleansing, releasing experience. And so, really the side effects is relaxation, is harmony, and a sense of peace and well-being. That tends to be consistent.
Are you tied up with the local hospital neurologist?
No, because the work that we do it's very, people would couch it into, say, an alternative medicine. It's a holistic practice.
10 seconds.
Okay. We haven't really embedded ourselves much with the medical community because of the nature of what we do.
Well, folks, that was Brett Judd for you. Brett, what is your contact number?
Absolutely. 208-232-2263. We'll get you right to the office.
That's Brett's number. And folks, if you have any questions, concerns, please make sure you can call him, talk to him, find out your stability of brains. Thank you so very much for tuning into the Sanjubaba Show. We'll catch you back same time, same day next week. Thank you.